Benjamin Franklin. Change is the end result of all true learning. Leo Buscaglia. Now, two very interesting quotes about our conversation. And if you're just joining us, welcome once again to Hello Port Harcourt. My name is Jude. Our previous conversation was about the shock, and I asked the question, why are some individuals now in 2021 bragging about malpractice? Now, it's not new news in Nigeria. Like I made mention of several countries, India in particular has and still has a huge malpractice challenge. However, growing up here, it was very unusual to hear someone come out and say, "Oh, I cheated." We knew it was happening, but recently some lady went on social media and bragged that it was because of cheating, aka doing wrongs, being smart, she made her way to final year and was graduating. And recently, yet again, another lady was accusing the school of facilitating malpractice and victimizing the child. The parents refused to sponsor the malpractice, and then the child was victimized. Now, we have to start back at somewhere as to how important education truly is. If, according to Benjamin Franklin, an investment in knowledge pays the best interest, that means if you pay to get knowledge, you would obviously be better off for it. But why? Because at the end, change is the end result of all true learning. If you learn something genuinely, at some point in time, you are going to find yourself changed or your state change. So what exactly are the benefits of education? Why is this so important to society? Number one, it's been claimed to have the opportunity to give you jobs, create employment, secure a better income. Most of our generation heard stories from our fathers and forefathers back in the 60s and 70s how important it was to get education. If you were educated, you become a teacher, you become a lawyer, a doctor, and that meant you could provide, or better still, better provide for your family members. Then we'll talk about improving the economy, providing a prosperous life, then as well as giving back to the community. All of these are benefits of education. But our question and focus this morning is, what is the true cost of education? Must everybody really be formally educated? A few years ago, and I spoke with my guest who was just joined us, Dr. Alfred Oladapo, this morning. Last week, I said to him that someone once told me that education is actually expensive, and not everybody must necessarily go through formal education. To put this in perspective, the British system, the UK government, in recent years has either doubled or in some cases tripled their tuition fees. And the question is, why? Why are they doing so? Should education be so expensive? And if it is, what exactly is the true cost of you not being formally educated or of you being formally educated? Once again, Dr. Alfred Oladapo joins us this morning. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Jude.
Always a pleasure to have you here, Dr. Alfred.
Thank you for having me.
All right, we have a hot burner this morning. Finances. How expensive is education? Should it be? UK government increasing tuition in previous years, even the US government at one point in time. For select schools, even private institutions, they had steady increase. And I spoke to you last week, and someone once said, I have to say this on air, the person said, going to the university is an expensive enterprise. So if it's expensive, does it mean it shouldn't be for everybody? If Benjamin Franklin is correct to have said the best investment is in knowledge because it yields the best interest.
I think it depends on the level at which you're looking at it. You know, almost every serious country I know has it in their policy that you got to go through formal education to a particular level.
To a particular
level.
Okay.
So that you don't have a country of a bunch of illiterates. You don't have people who are highly educated, and you have a lot of people who are not educated at all. So you got a bunch of confusion all over the place. So usually there is what you call the minimum standard. You got to go in formal education.
Okay.
The formal education, it's highly structured. It's got a syllabus. And apart from some of the things that you rolled out, they also have, stable teachers. There's a minimum qualification for you to be able to teach when it comes to formal education. The informal one, we all go through it on a daily basis. Yeah. But in terms of formal education, it depends on how high you want to go. The cost of doing a PhD, for example, is much more expensive than you doing a first degree. What determines the cost of education sometimes, and well, most of the time, not just sometimes, has to do with the kind of brand that you represent. You could go to a place like University of Port Harcourt and read mechanical engineering. I don't know how much it's going to cost you, from year 1 to year 5.
Yeah.
Probably it's not going to cost you up to 2 million. Okay, but you go to a place like Harvard, you want to read mechanical engineering. You know that 2 million is not going to take you nowhere.
2 million is not going to
It's not going to take you nowhere, even in your first year.
Just to get in?
Well, you Google it and see. And there are schools that are not even of Harvard standard that charge as much as $40,000 a year.
I'm sorry, what?
That charge as much as $40,000
a year.
Yeah.
If that,
so you've got to check it out.
Let's peg that at 50,000.
Okay, 50,000.
Yes, let's peg that at 50,000.
Yeah.
Right. The current exchange rate on the parallel market is about 502. Let's put it at 500. So if it's 50,000 and the exchange rate is about 500,
you're talking close to 25 million.
Yes.
Yeah, depending on the school.
For 1 year.
You're going to Ivy League schools, for example. You're talking of Harvard, MIT, Princeton, Yale. They're pretty expensive, and that's because they represent a particular brand. You know what I'm talking about right here? When you talk about representing a particular brand, is when you go to these schools. You step anywhere and you just find out that, okay, you don't need to probably introduce where is your school. What kind of school is that? Because they've come a long way over the years. And because they've presented a particular level of intelligence in the social world, in the corporate world, as well as in the marketplace, it's expected that when you go to those kind of schools, you're way above board. So when people are going to price you in terms of what you're worth, how much they're going to pay you, they're looking back at the kind of school that you've gone.
Yeah.
So they understand that it's not something that you probably it's not a walk in the park. So in terms of finances, it will depend on the quality of education you want to get.
Now, I remember our very first conversation, you made mention that, paying expensively doesn't mean you are getting the best education.
That's right. When you are looking at it, we're talking with reference to maybe secondary school here, as much as because you could have schools that are pretty expensive. And schools can be pretty expensive based on maybe the kind of investment that is made in providing the infrastructure in terms of the hostels, because most schools now try to create what I can call an elitist mentality. So not really in the syllabus, not in the style of teaching, but in the kind of superstructure that they have on ground. So probably you find that you got like maybe 2 students in a room, and it's some of the rooms probably have certain facilities,
air conditioning,
air conditioning, their own bathrooms, just 2 people. So you create that kind of thing, and you know that it's going to be like you're living in a hotel. You will know what the cost will be to you if you probably go to a hotel and you're going to spend 1 month, maybe a place like Presidential. You know what it's going to have some effect on your pocket. Yeah. So, but that can be transferred. The cost of providing infrastructure can be transferred to the cost that students have to pay if you want to attend that kind of school. It also depends on the kind of facility that is provided. What kind of teachers do they have too? Do you have high quality teachers that that look, these are like the best you can get anywhere? I'm not talking of average teachers who are overhyped. I'm not talking of people who don't probably who are not proud. They understand their own identity. How much more of trying to help students discover who they are.
So it's a question of the brand itself. Talking about these universities,
as far as the universities are concerned, I'll say yes.
So if we're looking at education in general, you said now based on what that group or that country would like to have. Let's look at Nigeria. What do you think is the minimum level of education that the government expects most people to have?
Well, you have what we call the universal basic education, basic. So that's, for me, that's the minimum that anybody should try to get into. I'm not sure we have any policy or a law that says you got to go to college.
There's no law that you must go to
that's
college
none.
or
So,
university.
and if you're going to contest like for the office of the presidency of this nation, you don't need more than probably a school cert or something like that.
Yeah, a lot of people have criticized that a lot of the public offices that we have available are usually benchmarked at having SSCE as a minimum requirement. People have asked for an upward review, but is that really important? Because if you say that's the basic, so that means with the basic, you should be able to function as a decent citizen in the country. But I don't think Nigerians are functioning decently in the country with the basic that they have.
In fact, having 3 PhDs is not equivalent to being well equipped to being a great leader of an organization. How much more of a state or a country? Because if you tie leadership and capacity to reason, to solve problems, to make intelligent decisions, to formulate policies for the populace for the good of the populace, it's not going to be a PhD thing. How many PhDs do we have in this country, for example? Reality is not are we better than when we had less? So what kind of quality of education are we offering now compared to what we probably have way back in the early 70s and the early 80s? They're basic questions that you're going to be asking. And like I said, and I think about it on time too, most of the private universities that are coming on now, where are they getting their teachers from? They're getting their professors from the same pool. That's it. So you're fishing from the same pond. So the question then is, with some of the private universities, they might be very expensive, but as it being expensive simply may also mean that you're here for 4 years is 4 years, rather than go to a public school where your 4 years can become 9 years because of ASU strike. So that's probably part of what you are paying for. Part of what you're paying for will be the kind of infrastructure they have. Part of what you're likely paying for, if they're well equipped, the laboratories are up to standard. That's probably part of what you're paying for. Because if you're studying the sciences, you need to be hands-on in the laboratory. But that's compared now to maybe a public school where you have 5 university students trying to share one beaker or one test tube and trying to see what it means for salt to dissolve inside water, and then for you to heat it, how it evaporates, condenses, and then you get your salt back and things like that. That's not an experiential learning. So some of those schools might be offering, and I say might because I don't really have any data to back this up. But when you look at what's the benchmark that made education kind of expensive, I mean financially, because there are other costs of education. So they could be what they say they are offering. They might not be offering, but that's what they say they are offering.
So now we have to look at the cost of education or not educating. Now let's make a comparison, right? So Nigeria now, there's no law to say you must go and finish university.
I don't think so.
Yes. So UBE is the standard, universal basic education, which is usually from primary to just about secondary. In most cases, some will tell you want to do JSS3, you're good to come and work. Yes. So just about 8 or 9 years of education, basic education, is what is required, or that's what the government tries to give to everybody.
I really hope that that's what basic education means. I'm just
now let's compare that to the U.S.
Okay.
Now in the U.S., right, the average education given out to most people is high school. In fact, a report, I'm sure you probably saw that last year, that Nigerians were the most educated minorities in America, accounting for about 75% or more of PhD holders, not masters now, PhD holders in America. So the average Nigerian who lives in America is more educated than the average American.
Well, that may not shock you. That may not cost. Well, again, that may not shock you because, see, we have a phantom understanding or phantom belief of some of these well-developed nations, or they call first country, and then we are called the third world. Sometimes I wonder, if we're even in the 10th world, considering where we are. But also take cognizance that there are people who have never left their county.
In America,
They
yes.
have never left
They've
their
never
country.
left the country. They've never left the
Yeah, they
state.
haven't at all. They have never, gone to the airport. They have never flown in an aircraft. They just see it fly over their heads. So, you got countless people like that. And it's not just an American thing, it's in all nations. But you got a minimum standard that by which the citizenry, at the level at which you reason and you understand, because you got systems. I was talking with a friend back in the US early this morning, and Dilma, what exactly do you think? Well, and we're talking about the dynamics of high performance organizations, and I said, the sad thing is, other organization or nation or company or family, whatever it is, what we always fail to put in place is the system that will run that organization or the system that will run that country. Most nations of the world are more interested in structures.
Not systems.
Not systems. The problem of Nigeria, many people say, let us restructure. I am telling you, what people are saying inherently is, we need to change the system that runs this country. That's it. You got the physical structures, there's no doubt. Yeah, you may quarrel, okay, we have lopsided structure. But you see, when you talk about the sharing formula, you're talking about the system. That's it. If you can get the system right, it doesn't matter, where you are. You're a Nigerian. So when you look at the level of education that most Nigerians have acquired, back in the States, it's because you find yourself in a society where you know that what will take you to the top of the ladder and what's going to distinguish you in a serious place like this is for you to get a good education. Because then, these are schools that are properly validated. These are schools that are properly approved. They got standards, they got professors, and you know that Nigerians are incredibly intelligent. I can tell you that, Jude. Incredibly intelligent. You need to meet a lot of Nigerians, across Africa, Asia, Europe, America, Latin America. Nigerians are incredibly intelligent. So when you look at people of that kind of genre, that they get to this kind of nation and they realize that they can go to school, they put all their energy behind it. Again, you consider that I flew across the Atlantic. Flying coast to coast, for example, is going to take you how many hours? If you're flying, Lagos, New York, is about 12 hours. You're flying Lagos, Atlanta, Georgia, it's probably about 12 hours or maybe 13 hours.
Half a day's trip.
So, and I'm tired of flying that, for example. I want to have a break from time to time. But you tell yourself that I can't come this far and fail.
So, there's a lot of work done into it. Now, to the big question, and we have just about a minute. The real cost of education, should it be high? Should the system you made mention in America, people graduate with GEDs, just grade school diplomas, and they're working and maybe start businesses. It's not costing them much. Meanwhile, over here, a lot of people are struggling to even get to finish secondary school properly, and then we seem to have this agenda of pushing everybody through university. Is it expensive for us to say people should go to university?
I think it's expensive. I think it's expensive on the grounds that how much do people earn in the first place? That's why you can't make a law that everybody must go to university.
So not everybody should go to university.
Well, I wouldn't say not everybody should go, but I'm not sure that I don't think everybody has a place in the university. That's just the truth.
Not everybody has a place.
Nobody has a place. Not everybody has a place in the university. So it's like an organization where you say, look, someone is running chaos in that organization. I believe strongly. And I think one of my mentors said that years ago, when I was back in the US, and he said, look, there are no bad people. God didn't create any bad people, but there are misplaced people.
Okay. All right. We'll pause it there. We'll go for a break and then headline news. And when we come back, the true cost of education with Alfred Oladapo. Once again, my name is June. Hello, Port Harcourt.
Headline News, Nigeria Info on
92.3.
Headline News.
A headline news from the nation's #1 talk, news, and sports radio station 92.3 Nigeria Info. My name is Jude. President Buhari says Nigeria is still a lucky country despite challenges. Senate rejects nomination of Loretta Onoche as INEC National Commissioner. Several people homeless following demolition in Elementary Park by River State government. And on the foreign scene, anger in Liberia as minister splashes wine on car. From the world of business, Director General of African Development Bank Group's Nigeria's Countries Department, Lamin Barrow, says high unemployment rate is threatening government's plan to lift millions of Nigerians out of poverty. On the entertainment scene, Nigerian singer Wizkid makes historic entry into United States Billboard Hot 100 this week. From the world of sports, Australia beat Nigeria 108-69 to win their third game in a row at Las Vegas Exhibition Series as both teams continue their preparation for the Olympics. More to come at midday, 12 p.m. this afternoon. Please contact our newsroom on 0818-90-017. The number again is 0818-90-00017. Thanks for listening. More news at midday.
When knowledge meets action, information liberates. How informed do you need to be to thrive in a fast-changing world?
Listen to experts only.
Keep your dial locked on 92.3 Nigeria Info for the best of news, talk, and sports 24/7.
I am listening. Are you?
Welcome once again. My guest this morning is Dr. Alfred Oladapo. He is a leadership consultant and also a consultant for businesses. His goal has always been to prime and strategize for organizations. And for this conversation, we're looking at the cost of education. Now, just before the break, I asked him a question. Should everybody go to university? His answer, well, there may not be space for everybody. He's not saying people must or must not, but they may not be. So what exactly is the cost of education or illiteracy in a country? It is expensive. If you can't go to a university in Nigeria, does that mean you have failed? So what exactly is the yardstick for proper education? In the US, just getting a degree from your high school, a high school diploma, is enough for you to be regarded as educated. But is that the same here in Nigeria? If you have just an SSCE, can you walk out with your chest and say, I am educated? Must you have gone to a university, a polytechnic, a school or college of education? What exactly is the cost of education? Our conversation this morning. Hello, Port Harcourt. Right, welcome back, Dr. Alfred.
Thank you, Jude.
Now we have we never seem to have enough time. So we have just about 7 minutes, and I'm going to ask you just this one question.
Okay.
How do we then have the shift to where we need to be? Not everybody will ever get to university. Some would argue not everybody should be in a university. But like I stated, and from the facts that we've read, how do we then make that work here? What is the cost of education or illiteracy? What's the real cost?
Education might be expensive the way we look at it in terms of naira and kobo, in terms of dollar, pound sterling, or whatever it is. But illiteracy is much more expensive. You can hardly estimate the cost of illiteracy. You can hardly estimate the cost of ignorance. Because you see, an ignorant person is educated, in the negative side, educated in the reverse gear thinking, educated in never being able to take cognizance of the reality, as well as being able to preview what the future looks like. So it's not just static, but it's just going back, in a spiral descent into the primitive world again. That's what illiteracy does to any nation. And in this age where you find that the speed at which changes come at us, kinetic changes at a very high level, you can afford to have people that are illiterate. Secondly, you can afford to have people that are semi-illiterate as well. Oh, because getting into school, and I think that those people are much more dangerous than even the illiterate. Because the illiterate understand, well, I'm an illiterate. So he has a benchmark for himself. But the semi-illiterate is neither educated and he's neither an illiterate. So, he tries to prove some level of knowledge. Yet, the knowledge is probably, fossilized, outdated, crude, unrefined, unneeded. And of course, cannot synchronize with the reality of the moment. But if we are going to produce the kind of educated people that we need to, then we've got to go back at our discussion of last week. What quality are we offering? Because when you say someone is educated, it's not just a certificate thing.
Yeah.
That someone has a certificate doesn't mean the person is educated. I mentioned on one of our sessions that one of my professors said, you get education by degrees, but degrees are not education. So people can amass as many degrees as they want. They can pay so much money. The question is this person educated? So you will measure the cost of education just based on cash. You also got to measure, because there are several other factors that determine the cost of education. There's the emotional part of it. There's the psychological part of it. There's the readiness of the learner or the students himself. Okay, there is the societal angle to it, because you can go to school and still come back, and the society messes you up, or you come and mess up the society.
But it's not unusual, and I think it's probably obtainable everywhere. We have just about another form, and it's obtainable everywhere. Anybody who has an MSc or a PhD or several PhDs, because we have younger people these days getting PhDs in more than one discipline, they're going to be seen and regarded as somebody who is educated, like highly educated. Look at people who are designing smartphones. Look at people who are making software work. Even those that obviously didn't finish school, talking about Bill Gates and the rest, they always employ those who have PhDs, and they themselves maybe at some point in time still go back and get better training. So I'm just thinking, for those who are listening and say, but if he's saying somebody in high school over there can be termed educated, but over here, dangerously so, might be looked at as being semi-educated. Final question. We live in a country where it has been asked and said several times, we need technocrats. Aren't technocrats the educated ones?
Well, they're not just educated. They're not just people who went to school. They're also hands-on people. So being a technocrat goes beyond that. I got certificates. You have a track record of performance. And I'm not talking about everybody performs, that's the truth. Everybody performs. But you're talking in terms of high performance, highly sought after people. That when you get to any place, you are creating cutting edge changes. You are fast tracking the process by which people get results. You are taking the organization from where it is, where you made it, to where it's supposed to be at a particular level. You're not thinking local, you're thinking global. So you are drawing extrapolation from where you are to where other high performance organizations in other parts of the world are. You are competing on the big league, not on the local league. So when you talk of technocrat, it's not a function that somebody went to school. And I might say this too, that somebody probably did well in one particular area doesn't mean they're going to do well in other areas. Okay. That's why you need to be able to streamline and know what you're good at. There are certain names that you mention, and immediately you mention those names, you know what comes to your mind. I mean, you don't have to think who's Michael Jordan, by the way. I mean, you know what he stood for.
Yes.
You know what he stood for. Innocent Bunike, you know who these guys are. Most people that even went to university in Nigeria, the question is, what are they doing with the education that they said they got? Because most people are misplaced. What they are doing today is not what they studied in school. So all the 4 years of going to school, is it a complete waste? That's another question for another day.
Oh, another question for another day. All right, so it's time to get to engage you this morning as we talk about the true cost of education. How expensive should it be? Can it be? Must it be? And the big one, must everybody get to a certain level? But the question many Nigerians are, and probably you right now, trying to resolve, how do we then get to the point where you are not termed educated by the degrees that you have? If a high school diploma holder in the US can confidently beat his chest and say, I am educated, can you, who finished and just stopped maybe in JSS3 or maybe SS3, can you confidently say you are educated? Let's get to hear from you this morning. The cost of education. Must we all go into the university or into tertiary education? 017-923-0002. 0817-923-0003, 0817-923-0007, and then the female caller line is 0817-923-0009. WhatsApp and Telegram available on 0809-030-6416, 0809-030-6416. Where do you think you stand? Do you think you are an educated fellow? Do you think you are semi or semi-educated? I'll be hard-pressed for anybody to admit that he or she is semi or semi-educated. It's going to be a tough one to ask. And the cost. How do we resolve that? I really want to get to hear from you this morning. Hello, Port Harcourt. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning to you. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Nathaniel calling from Bonny Island.
Welcome, Nathaniel.
Good morning to our guests there, please.
Good morning, please.
Yes, I think for me, the standard for education is set in Nigeria. If I'm able to achieve the secondary school level, that is the SSE, I think I should be able to beat myself that I'm educated. At the standard at which I can be able to read and write and then be able to mix up people. Like in Nigeria, if you are able to attend the secondary education, I think you should be able to become the president. That is the standard for becoming the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I don't know what could be obtainable in other countries, but as a Nigerian, I know there are so many persons who are educated, like those who are finished their secondary school. They are equal to the class, they can speak well. And to speak of it too, I think not everybody can attend that university education. Not everybody can attend that degree level of education because things are very expensive and the universities are not even enough. Even if almost every day universities are beginning to jump up on daily basis. But we still know that so many persons are being given back to and many persons are very eager to go to school. And so many persons are not able to attend that university level because the schools are very expensive and so many other factors also inclusive. But if I'm able to attend that education, that SSE, that's almost like almost all the villages in Nigeria, I think I can be able to beat myself that I am educated.
All right, thank you very much, Nathaniel. So Nathaniel says, if you can get that basic education, and let's go back to your comments earlier. You said, what is the quality of that basic education?
True, Jude. Is it in schools where people are sitting on the floor? Schools where people are learning, under the tree. Schools where, when it rains, the whole classes are flooded. Is it schools, where, they don't have water, they don't have public toilets, they don't have, so teachers and students or learners have to go to the nearby bush, to ease themselves and all that. So education is, we look at it majorly many times as classroom stuff. See, the environment in which you are educated, it's part of the learning system.
Part of the learning system. Hello, Port Harcourt. Oh dear, apologies. Message here. This is actually true. I agree with your guest. Semi-education is deadly and harmful. Certificate is not equal to being educated. Nigeria delighted in producing certificated graduates than qualified graduates. Quantity and quality. Everyone needs to redefine education and put 3 or 4 domains into reality. So now, what are these domains? Now, the question is, would you willingly let someone who only has an SSC Be responsible for your company. Let's get to speak to Chibruma this morning. Good morning, Chibruma.
Yes, Sajud.
Good morning.
Now that this country, Nigeria, is making it compulsory that people should come up with educational certificate or university certificate, whether you are qualified or not. You see, like somebody that is working with me in the way I'm working, he's always boasting that he's a master degree holder. But when he uses the toilet, he doesn't flush it.
Okay.
And the moment you ask him why did he not flush the toilet, the next thing he will tell you that he has master.
Okay.
That people are not supposed to talk to him. And these are
Wow.
You get my point?
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
So somebody can go through the university and then he's not doing the right thing.
All right, thank you very much. Victor is at OMO. Good morning, Victor.
Yeah, good morning. How are you doing?
Very well. Thank you for joining us, Victor.
Okay. The way we Africans, most especially West Africans, blacks in West Africans, see education is different from the way the Western world is. We used to believe, or we do believe that anyone who goes to university is educated because they have a certificate. But there are so many angles which you can look at it. You can go to university. Did the school pass through you, or you just pass through the school? As determined. And what about people who went for vocational training? Maybe they might specialize. Okay, let me just take a welder. And he's an expert in that. You will see him as an educated person because he communicates well with his customers, communicates well with the society. He is relevant to his society, relevant to his family, and also useful to himself. So I see such person as an educated person because if you come to his field, he's a professional.
Well, all right, Victor, thank you very much. Interesting point there. We're going to go to Victor's point after we hear from Zion. Good morning, Zion.
Hello, Potako.
Hello, Potako. Good morning.
There is this margin that flows that I think I disagree. If you think education is too expensive, try illiteracy. The truth is this, you can't do away with this formal education if we are not educated formally. Our decision will be shrouded in secrecy. Our choices will be stampeded. For instance, look at the case of Nigeria. Do you know, outside President Muhammadu Buhari, every other political office holder is a graduate. Only President Muhammadu Buhari, according to the court, is only a WAEC holder. How come the nation is not progressing? Amidst the graduates, professors, BSc holders, HND holders, handling the affairs of Muhammadu Buhari, I guess even his advisors are also graduates. How come the nation, Nigeria, is under frustration? To tell you that education is important. With education, our choices will be restricted to development.
Okay.
With education, our opinions will be enlightened. A lot of decisions and opinions are not informed. I am making my opinion. Does my opinion stand the test of reality?
Okay, all right.
If I'm not educated, I cannot make such an opinion.
Right.
So education is important.
All right, thank you very much, Zion. Apologies, we went for time. But he and the penultimate caller make two very interesting points. One, we have leaders who are SSC holders who are probably not been to university or who don't have, in quote, heavy degrees, right? House of Rep members and the like. They are the ones, as we are calling the shots. And the other caller made mention that, hey, look, I don't think just having that formal education counts. What about vocational studies? Can't I see someone who has vocational studies as being educated?
Again, we did mention informal education. Okay, so that's why we say everybody cannot have their place. For example, in a university, even in secondary school, that's the truth. I finished my primary school, and the best student in my class, the father told him, I have tried. I didn't even go to primary school, so this is okay for you. And he was incredibly intelligent.
Oh, wow.
He led our class from, I think, class 2 all the way to, in those days
6.
you do primary 7.
Oh.
Yeah,
Wow.
in those days you do primary 7. He led all through. He was much older than all of us. In fact, we call him brother. You can't call him by name. Yeah. But, the father just said, I have tried better than my own father. And that's where he stopped. Now, would you say such a person, if he had an opportunity, wouldn't he be one of the best professors in the world? It's not impossible. But he went into trading. That's a different thing entirely. I think what the society has done and what our system, as corrosive as it is, has ingrained in us is that any job that is advertised, minimum, first degree.
First degree, yes.
I think that's probably, that's where the problem is beginning to come. Now, when I see it, in the recruitment from time to time, people sometimes that have third class, have gotten the job ahead of people that have first class. Because you see, it's not just about the classroom understanding now. Part of what they test for today, in recruitment, they test your capacity to play on a team, your ability to collaborate, what's the level of creativity, and then how well are you able to apply yourself to the assignment? What's the level of understanding within the system that you're going to be working? Now, I told you 2 weeks ago, I mentioned how the Pan-African University, because you're talking about a course of education. When you go to Pan-African University, which is owned by Africa Union, well, okay, fine. So, like I said, we handle some of their stuff now. If you're there for masters, you are being paid, I think, $500 and something every month. You are being paid as a student. If you're doing your PhD, you're paid above $800 a month.
So what does one need to get into that kind of institution?
What you need to do is just get on go to their website.
But you see, but now stuff like that. Now the question has to now come in once again: the cost. Who's bearing the cost? It's expensive to pay people.
It's expensive, but they know the quality they are offering, and they understand that the average person may not be able to afford it. See, I got a lot of scholarship from Harvard. The only thing is for you to get such scholarship, either in African Union or Harvard or Princeton or Yale, you must be incredibly good. That they can look at you. You're okay. That's the word. You got to be exceptional. So they place you among your peers and say, "Look, forget it. This guy is just in a different world." So they could give you like a scholarship of maybe $42,000. Another person probably maybe $18,000. Another person. So this thing is graded according to your level of intelligence. There's no way my parents could have paid for me going to Harvard. There's no way. I came from a very poor background, but the issue is those who understand that education is expensive. In fact, in some universities in South Africa, if not all, when you are doing your PhD, you are paid. You are paid because you are doing a lot of research. And if you don't pump money into education, then how will people really get quality? In Nigeria, for example, what percent of our budget goes for education? As you goes to strike. It's like we have just lost every sense of shame. Because I think a serious nation, you should have a sense of indictment and leadership that, look, your citadel of learning are being shut down because you refuse to fund it.
So, we need to start to work about the systems, not just the structure, the systems. So that we can get to the point where someone who gets to secondary school, can read and write favorably well, can express himself.
You are discussing something on my way, coming. Now, when students in secondary school have to sort themselves with invigilators, what would they be doing in university? When someone can go to Facebook or Instagram or whatever you call it, I pick part of that on my way and say I made it, yes, even though I know that the process is wrong, but who the heck, who cares? The important thing is I made it. Imagine that kind of person then being your boss later in life. That's why people always say sometimes that in most organizations, and maybe in our nation too, that the worst of us are being led, by the best of us. I mean, the best of us are being led by the worst of us. Yes. And it's not that the people are bad. It's just that, we have people that are misaligned, that are misplaced, that are not supposed to get near public offices at all in terms of intelligence. And truth is, what does it take to probably attain public office? In Nigeria, for example, public opinion. That's what it takes. But then, so you say people have to vote because it all begins with those who hold the key to the finances. If you're not funding the universities, you're not even funding your secondary schools, the unity schools. Go to some of the unity schools. You will be most disappointed. Indeed. So someone who probably went to such a school where infrastructures are so dilapidated, he finishes and comes to the society. What sense will he have for quality, in life?
Well, it's always a pleasure when we get to speak with Dr. Alfred Oladapo. We never ever have enough time, but we always go with the aha moment. Well, thank you very much for another aha moment, Dr. Alfred. Always a pleasure.
Thank you very much, Chief, for having me.
Hello, Port Harcourt wraps up today news coming up, and would like to remind you, you get the latest right here on 92.3 Nigeria Info. Sunnyside right after that. Do enjoy the rest of your day. My name is Jude Omamikbe.